Hey, just so you know,
Yeah.
you're being recorded.
All right.
Bro, where has that light been this whole time?
I don't know.
What the fuck, bro? You just bust out like the most important piece you could have had this entire time.
I don't know.
I fucking hate you. In five, four, three, two. All right, guys, welcome back to yet another episode of a Native MMA Radio. Wally Wall and I are back. My name is Randall Folks. Waleed Kandusi, my co-host.
Yeah.
As always, like and subscribe to our YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Hit us up at all those. Hit that little bell notification thing. Get all the new content updated as soon as we drop it. We drop about 2 to 3 videos a week. We try to get interviews in there. We're going to be dropping another interview tomorrow. We dropped one today of a young man who was on the main event of the prelim portion, Bortos Fabinski.
Yeah.
Now, the Polish Butcher is an amazing fighter. Can't wait to see him this weekend. A bunch of great names that I see on this. And we don't even got to talk about the greatness of Overeem, okay? The Reem has literally fought in like any and everybody that's ever been in his way. He's fought in like generation after generation after generation. The guy's like 107 years old at this point, and he's still whooping ass.
Still killing it. Still killing the game and still dangerous. But that's not an easy matchup for both of the guys because Augusto Sakai, who is,
It's on a roll.
for what we're thinking, one of the guys who represent the future of this division against like the old dinosaurs of this division. So it's very interesting matchup and very interesting fight to see because let's see if this new generation actually is ready to take over or those so-called dinosaurs are still here and still keep on fighting and maybe
Yeah,
one of them will get the title fight.
Augusto is 5-0 since joining the UFC. He
Yeah.
had some losses in his career. He lost in Bellator and he was over there. But since he's been in the UFC, he's looked pretty much unstoppable.
Right. He looked great. He looked great. Now this is another level of challenge when it comes to Overeem because Overeem, man, he's still the Reem.
Yes, the co-main event, I believe, was scheduled for 2 weeks ago. OSP versus Alonzo Minifield.
Yeah.
Sajara Eubanks and Carla Rosa were originally scheduled to fight other people. They ended up fighting each other 2 weeks later down the road because both their opponents came down with COVID. Just crazy times we're living in. Welcome to pandemic MMA.
Yeah. Crazy. And this co-main event, I'm actually more excited about the co-main event than the main event.
Ooh, me too, brother. But listen, we got to talk about, fellow Native American. Hunter Azir is in the very first fight of the night. Super proud of him. You got to check out Hunter Azir. Very amazing young fighter, 8-1. He's looked great since joining the UFC. Losing to Brian Callier, no sweat off his back. He beat Brad Cantona, sent him packing from the UFC. Now we have Cole Smith, the Cole Train, 7-1. He's looked very good since also joining the UFC. Both of them have very dominant performances, and both of them carrying a loss. 1-1 since being here.
Yeah.
We'll see what they can do. Both orthodox. Hunter has a 2-inch reach advantage. Super excited about that. The most important thing, if you look at the strikes landed per minute, Waleed, Hunter Azir is 4.71 strikes landed per minute. Cole Smith is only 1.5.
Well, that could be the deciding, like, the game changer when it comes to these fights. But
100%.
I feel like this is a very, very close fight because the both fighters, like you said, are in on a losing streak. Both fighters needs desperately to win.
Yeah. They're very young in their UFC
Yeah.
career. Obviously, it happens. They were both undefeated before this point, both coming off their very first losses in their career. It'll be interesting to see who's able to bounce back. Now, Hunter is 3 years younger than Cole. Most impressive thing that jumps off the page for me, Hunter Azir's takedown defense is 81%.
No, impressive.
Super impressive. Obviously, when you got a guy like that, hard to take down. It's going to be a long night, in my opinion, for Cole Smith. I think, personally, Hunter Azir runs away with that matchup.
That's a possibility, and that's what we wish to our fellow native brother.
Now, listen, Hunter, in the very first fight of the night, I know you like to have the heavyweights, but Dana said, hold on a second. We're going to give you heavyweights in the second
I will
fight.
wait for that. I will have no issue. Like, usually I want the first fight to be heavyweight, but for this one, I will wait another fight. There's no
Listen,
issue.
we've had to wait about 4 weeks to see Alexander Romanov make his UFC debut. Let me tell you what, guys, you're not going to want to miss this. You're going to be telling your grandchildren about this. This cat is amazing. Literally barely makes 265, 6 foot solid. He is 30 years old at this point, 11-0, has wins by slams. He's got wins by chokes, punches, forearm chokes, some more punches, some more forearm chokes, rear naked chokes, and chokes. And guess what? This guy in 10 pro fights, has probably spent less than 10 minutes in a cage.
Yeah.
And that's the most impressive part.
If the hype is real and he go on and destroy Rogerio de Lima, which is not an easy fight, we'll come back to that. We may be saying Fedor who? He may eclipse, because we always had that issue where, what if Fedor came to the UFC? He may eclipse him, and we will not even talk about Fedor coming to the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, this kid is legitimately special, in my opinion. Marcos Rogerio de Lima, former Ultimate Fighter, is no slouch himself, though. The dude lands crazy strikes, 3.78 per minute, and for a heavyweight, that's a lot. He mixes it up very well, too. He goes to the head, body, and the legs, and he's able to do that with such fluidity that it's almost second nature to him. His groundwork isn't the best, but he definitely makes it up with his kickboxing. He has gone win-loss since being in the UFC in all 5 fights. Unfortunately, he just won his last fight, so if records stay the same, he's going to get a loss here. Alexander Romanov is definitely going to go in there in his debut and try to make sure that happens.
Yeah, hopefully the fight will deliver, because if it does, he will put the whole heavyweight division on notice.
And I think he's going to. When we see guys like Chimaev come in and just make such a huge impression in their very first fights, I think that we're going to see the same thing with Alexander Romanov. And you and I have been talking about him since he was originally supposed to take on Marcin Tybura a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
He got, dropped down with COVID. He had a fight before that against Rafael Paseo. That fell out because of just the whole pandemic that canceled the entire card. Now, here we go. We finally get to see Mr. Alexander Romanov make his UFC debut. And I think it's going to be one of those that we're going to remember. It's going to be exciting. And I don't think you guys want to blink.
Yeah, definitely.
In the women's flyweight division, Viviana Araújo takes on Montana De La Rosa. Obviously, in Montana's corner is going to be her husband. These two have obviously been amazing since being together, but I think Montana has, been the one to have the more successful career. Montana has won 4 of her last 5, beating our good friend Nadia Cassie. She's bought, Mara Barbarella. She also beat Rachel Ostovich. She looked very impressive in that. The one lady who Mrs. Viviana has lost to is Jessica Ai. You remember that fight. Jessica Ai looked very good and dominant. She was able to really outclass Viviana, and I think with this fight with Montana De La Rosa, we will not see such a huge gap in talent. I'm not knocking, Viviana at all. I just think Jessica Ai is, the cream of the crop of that flyweight division.
Yeah, I agree with you. She's a top contender. Like in this division, we have Valentina, then we have the top contenders, then we have the others. And Jessica is definitely one of the top contenders.
And but this fight is ahead of the top contenders.
She is ahead. Yeah, I agree with you. It's just that the gap between her and the champion is too big. But when it comes to this fight, Montana against Vivian is a very interesting matchup, and those fights are hard to predict because you don't know how it goes. Sometimes one of them really deliver and the other one doesn't, so there's no way to really predict how the fight will go.
Viviana has a 4.51 strikes landed per minute, in her UFC career. In my opinion, with 100% takedown defense, this fight is going to stay standing, even though Montana De La Rosa and her wrestling are going to be, working at full force to take it to the ground. I think Viviana keeps this fight standing. She wins it easily, and I think she really pieces apart Montana De La Rosa. If she doesn't finish her early, it's going to be a one-sided unanimous decision victory.
Yeah, that's a possibility. But I feel like Montana actually is wrestling maybe too much, so I think that we will get the fight to the ground.
We shall see 100% takedown defense. She'll be the first person to ever take down Viviana in the octagon. So it's definitely an interesting matchup.
Yeah.
Andre Munoz is taking on Bartosz Fabinski. We had Bartosz on earlier, obviously fighting out of Poland. It seems like he's in a little bit of a better situation when it comes to being able to train. Obviously, with COVID-19 going on right now, it's hard for people in the U.S. to train unless they're at the UFC Apex. And even then, you still can't get rounds in with a bunch of guys. Bartosz is, going daily with guys like Jan Blachowicz and, all the studs they have over there in Poland. My thing is that going to play a deciding factor in it? Also, Bartosz is cutting no weight for this fight. I spoke to him today, a day before weigh-ins, and he was just hanging out on the couch. No, no worries about having to go cut weight, none of that stuff. Andre is a dominant 185er. But Bartosz has looked very good at 85. He beats Darren Stewart in his last fight. That was under the Cage Wars banner. Now, if you've been paying attention to MMA, there was a huge, mix-up. UFC London was canceled. Cage Warriors lost a bunch of fighters. UFC lent them fighters. That was one of the fights that they lent them. Bartosz Fabinski and Darren Stewart both had separate opponents coming into that week. Bartosz ends up, getting it worked out so where he's going to go to Cage Wars, go to Manchester and fight. The thing is, to me, is does he get the victory here against Andre? And do you think he stays in the 185-pound division?
Well, I think that's a question that we cannot answer right now until we watch the fight. Because what if Bartosz actually performed well? Because we saw some fighters performing great because they're not cutting weight. We saw fighters actually needs actually that struggle when it comes to weight cuts to perform well. So those are questions that we cannot answer because there's no rule, there's no formula. It's not science when it comes to that because every fighter is different.
Yes.
Either way, that's a great fight to have as the main event of the prelims. What did Bartos actually tell you about how he's preparing for the fight, other than having the
he
main?
Didn't jump a whole lot into his game plan. He was kind of shelled about his answer. I asked him about it. Obviously, the good MMA media person in me obviously had to ask him about his game plan and what he thinks. But he was very straightforward. He didn't want to talk. Not that he was, standoffish at all or anything. But he said, my game plan is to go in there and just pretty much dominate. That's the way it is, without giving it all away. What he's gonna do, move here, go this. I think it's gonna be towards, him going to the ground. I think Bartosz has the clear advantage on the ground. Takedowns landed per 15 minutes in his UFC, fights 7. Takedown accuracy 70%, takedown defense 80%. I really feel like Bartosz is going to go in there and just control the ground.
That's a possibility. Like you said, maybe having the full training camp may be a big difference. Not having to wait to cut weight can be another very interesting to see because there's more to this fight than the actual just fight.
Yeah, 100%. In the very first fight of the main card, Thiago Moraes is taking on the tarantula Jalen Turner. I really like Jalen Turner. I feel like, he's had some bad losses in the UFC. He lost to Luque. He lost to Frivola. But He looked good in his last fight. I know Columbia was coming up from another division to take on the lightweight, but it'll be interesting to see him go up against somebody who is definitely his own size. Thiago Moraes has looked phenomenal here as of late. His last fight against Michael Johnson was just dominating. He beat Chris Hol, or who did he beat? Who the hell was that? Holborough.
Thiago won against Michael Johnson.
Yes, he looked impressive doing that. The thing for me, Jalen Turner is just so long and lengthy. Where is it? Right here, the reach. Jalen Turner's got a 77-inch reach, where Thiago Moraes is only a 70-inch reach. Obviously, the strikes landed per minute is close to 6 for Jalen Turner, where it's only about 2.5 for Thiago. I think that's going to be the most significant thing because, as you can tell, Jalen Turner does get taken down, but he is very good at getting right back up, and he's good at staying on his feet. He's not John Dotson good. That dude's just otherworldly. But for a lightweight, he's pretty damn good. 76% takedown defense as well for Jalen Turner.
Well, when you're a striker, you want to have the reach advantage, and when you're a grappler, you want to be sometimes the shorter guy. And this is what we have, a perfect matchup maybe for both fighters. So maybe the one can cancel the other. So what I think is the one who will start the fight hard may win this fight, because don't forget that it's just a 3-round fight.
Yeah, I really like this matchup going in. Starting the main card, I really feel like it sets the tone for, the people who just watch the main card. Jalen Turner is, phenomenal. And Moraes is, no slouch, and he's looked very impressive here lately. I'm excited for these two.
I agree with you.
Brian Keller versus Kevin Natividad. I don't know.
Natividad.
Listen, Kevin, I messed it up, but that's why we got Waleed here, to get that shit straight.
Yeah, exactly. Natividad.
Now, Natividad has a 4-inch reach advantage over Brian Keller. Obviously, Kevin is making his, not Kevin. No, it is Kevin. Sorry. Kevin is making his UFC debut here. Brian Keller has, lost his last fight against Cody Stamann. Cody Stamann was very emotional going into that fight, looked beautiful, and dominated Brian Keller. He beat Hunter his year before that. Yeah. He's won 2 of his last 5. So this is definitely a fight that Brian Keller needs to, get a victory in. Going off of a guy who's making his UFC debut, who is 9-1 though. I don't know if that's the right move for Brian. I know this is a last-minute switch. I know a lot of guys were calling for this fight. Justin Janus even posted last week that he would fight Brian at 145 pounds. That didn't work out. The UFC got Kevin. Here we go, man. UFC debut. Let's make the most of the moment.
Well, exactly, and that's what I think he's doing. Keller is actually trying to, whatever, even if it's a new fighter, maybe it's technically not the smartest move for him, but it is what it is. Desperate time, desperate measures. You just want to fight.
I think it's a dangerous fight for Brian Keller. I really do.
Maybe, but this is a time where we are seeing some fighters who actually you thought that should be losing, winning. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if it's actually a
Cardo Lamas last week, a perfect example.
Exactly, that's the perfect example. So I'm not sure if it's the wrong move. And if you're a fighter, you should be ready to fight, whatever. And he needs to get paid. He needs that paycheck. So that's what he needs to do.
100%. The next fight, Michel Pereira taking on Zelim Imadav. Michel Pereira is an amazing fighter, brother. I cannot wait to see him just continue to perform. Let me tell you what, don't blink, because you don't know what you're going to see this guy do. He might run and do a backflip off the wall. He might do a whole lot of craziness. It's super interesting on what he could do in the octagon. I mean, his last fight, I feel like he just got winded, and I feel like if that wouldn't have happened, he might have, beaten him and had a very impressive performance.
Well, the only thing that he cannot do, maybe I would say, is throwing chairs or whatever, because other than that, he can do everything, brother.
100%. I'm excited for this fight. It's one guy who you definitely want to watch because it is an exciting fight. Zalim Imadov is also very exciting. Both these guys landing about, 3 to 3.5 strikes per minute. They absorb about the same. The biggest takeaway for me, though, is Michel Pereira is just so damn hard to take down. 100% takedown defense. Never been taken down in the UFC. Ishmael only has a 50% takedown accuracy. I don't think he's going to be the one to do it. It'll be interesting here with Zalim and Michel. Who do you have winning this fight?
Well, when it comes to Pereira, he's a very, let's say, reckless fighter who will throw crazy stuff even in the beginning of the first round. Zalim, I think that if he can like resist and he can survive the first round and the craziness, I think that he can pick up that second and third round and win by decision easily.
See, that's the thing too. Michel Pereira, with all that crazy and eccentric movement, it comes at a price, and I don't think he has the cardio to keep up that type of style.
Impossible. It's impossible.
You know what I mean?
Nobody
has
doing
backflips and front flips and side flips, and this is before the fucking fight's even starting, bro.
Yeah, he's crazy.
Like, calm all that shit down. Just be elusive when you have to, and he would be super dangerous.
I agree with you, but it is what it is. I cannot criticize someone for giving us something to enjoy to watch, But maybe in some way, if I was like a huge fan of him or his coach, maybe I would tell him to don't go crazy. But as a fan, he brings something to the table that we don't see like usually. So yeah, why not? Let him keep on doing
I'm
his
excited.
thing.
Listen, here's how it works out. Just like you said the same thing. If it is, within the first round, Michel wins the fight. If it goes past the first round, Zalim has the decision or a finish, whichever one he wants. Because that's the problem with Michel Pereira. He's about a round and a half fighter.
Yeah.
Now, in the next fight, Sijara Eubanks and Cara Rosa, like I was saying, were scheduled to fight two other women 2 weeks ago. Now, these two women, obviously still in Vegas, wanting to just fight, decide to, let's just fight each other and figure this out in a couple weeks. Here we go in the women's bantamweight division. Sijara Eubanks has looked, not too bad in the bantamweight division. She's won one and lost one. But she looked very good in her loss against Betcha Correia. Betcha's not even around anymore. I mean, it's an interesting matchup. Carla Rosa is 2-0. And yes, Kay, I had to take my moment to talk about Betcha, all right? It happens.
Yeah.
She's gone.
Of course, always.
Let's take a moment of silence for Betcha, everybody.
Ah, come on.
She knows. She knows.
I don't think that she will be missed, but whatever.
She's missed on this show, damn it.
For you, maybe.
Carla Rosa, very impressive. 9.7 strikes landed per minute to Sijara Eubanks is 4.95. For all you guys who say women shouldn't fight, just look at those goddamn numbers. You see all these guys I just rattled off. None of them are close to 9.7 strikes landed per minute. And this is a 135-pound woman we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So for all you guys who think that girls shouldn't fight, you're watching the wrong fucking sport. Go back to boxing.
Well, MMA is maybe the only sport where there's really equality when it comes to females and male fighters. The only sport. There's no other sports in the world that have that standard.
100%. Carla Rosa has an impressive 9.7 significant strikes landed per minute. But what's even more impressive to that, in my opinion, is her 100% takedown defense.
Yeah, but let's see. Let's see if the fight can go to the ground or not. In my opinion, this fight will not go to the ground because this will be a stand-up brawl. Sijara, very like 10 years difference between the two fighters, which is impressive. I feel like.
Yes.
Sijara more experienced. Sijara 10 years older than Carol, but Carol will have more MMA fights, so which is crazy, but. It is what it is. Interesting matchup. Do you have a prediction for this fight?
Carla Rosa keeps the fight standing and dominates it. She beat our good friend Vanessa Mello. So, I mean, I was, paying a close attention to that fight. And the way she's able to move and the way she's able to land with her striking, she's so fluid. It's going to be hard for Sajara to keep up. Carla Rosa wins this fight 100%.
Well, I will have to agree with you. I feel like Carol also will be the winner.
Now, co-main event, OSP versus Alonzo Minifield. My brother Waleed, I know you were super excited about this. You were super excited about it weeks ago when we first talked about it. These two gentlemen at 205 pounds look amazing. OSP has his own goddamn choke. Alonzo Minifield goes in there and just murks motherfuckers, only losing his last fight. And he looked impressive in that fight up until getting knocked out. 9-1, coming off his first loss ever. What do you think Alonzo Minifield does to make sure he walks out on Saturday night victorious?
Well, he needs to do what he's been known for to do. He needs in the beginning go crazy, and because OSP, both guys, even OSP usually wins by taking the fight to the ground and having that amazing submission of him. He also has so much power in his hands, and when he throws,
he's not just a Von Fluke choke.
Dude, crazy angles. Even John Jones said it when he went to decision with him. John Jones said it's a weird matchup. Is when you fight against OSP, you're afraid of getting hits because he go in every direction. Like his angles are very different from other fighters, but very excited about this fight. I hope that we see the fight being standing up and maybe at one point just having it going to the ground just to see OSP at least attempt his submission move.
Alonzo Minifield is 85% takedown defense. So it's going to be, it's a pretty good takedown defense. OSP is one gentleman, though. He's just so strong.
Yeah.
I don't know in the 205-pound division who can keep him off him. Even John Jones had problems with that.
I will tell you this, and this is how I think the fight will go. OSP, and if he survives those the first and early second round, he can then take Alonzo to the ground, because Alonzo is the type of fighter that don't go to the third round. He doesn't have the cardio, I feel. So if OSP waits and just make him tired, he then can take him to the ground actually and submit him.
Yeah, it's crazy that you say that Alonzo Minifield is actually the favorite. Minus 130. OSP is the plus 100 underdog. It's interesting because a guy that probably it doesn't go a whole 3 rounds, and that's the most important part is Alonzo Minifield. Even though he is very dangerous, he probably, like you said, only has a good round and a half, 2 rounds in him. If he can show us, though, that he has worked on that cardio, that is a dangerous man with that type of power that can put you out at any moment. If he can fix those cardio issues, we have a real threat in the light heavyweight division.
Yeah, I agree with you. If he maybe can wait more when it comes to throwing those big strikes of his.
Not go and rush out there and try to fight him. Just take your time.
Yeah, but do you have a prediction? I predicted the OSP winning by submission in the 3rd round.
Alonzo Minifield, I feel like, is going to get the knockout fairly early in the 1st round.
That's a possibility.
Here we go to the main event. Alistair Overeem, I feel like, has just got the most impressive record in the UFC. 46-18 in 1 no contest. Just crazy when you think about that. Over 50, almost 50 wins, over 60 fights. Just when you put that type of impressive resume together, it's just what else is more for this guy? He says he's got 1 more title run in him. He beat Walt Harris in his last matchup. Could be very impressive and on his way to another title run. Augusto Sakai, though, is the man in his way right now. 15-1 in 1 draw. That one is in a Bellator fight. I can't remember off the top of my head who beat him. Let's look that up real quick.
It was Czech Congo.
It was Czech Congo. So there we go. Breaking news. Czech Congo has a fight coming up. to a good friend of ours who's on this show quite a few times. We're not going to completely drop it right now because Bellator has not announced it, but pretty much gave it all away right there, because who's that one Bellator heavyweight that we speak to a lot?
Yeah.
About it. Now, back to this fight. Augusto Sakai. Talk about impressive wins in the UFC so far. Beat Chase Sherman, Andre Arlovsky, Mason Tabur, and Ivanov. Ivanov will stab you in the parking lot after your fight if you do him dirty. Let me tell you what, that dude is dangerous. And Augusto Sakai just went in there and took him out.
Yeah. Ivanov didn't look good ever since joining the UFC. I believe that there was too much hype when it comes to him, but he didn't perform. But going back to this fight, I feel like this is the kind of perfect matchup when it comes to Alistair Overeem, because Augusto Sakai is a heavy hitter, but he doesn't try to finish like the fights when it comes to the first round. He more of a picking his strikes, which is perfect for Overeem, because Overeem had issues with fighters with huge power because of his chin, who actually got exposed so many times. So against a guy like Augusto Sakai,
60 pro fights, that'll happen.
Yeah, it makes sense. And it's the heavyweight division with those small gloves. It only makes sense. Overeem may work the body, work like this fight. It will be a good performance by him, I feel like.
Strikes landed for Overeem per minute, 3.66, 5.45 for Augusto Sakai. Big important thing for me that I want to point out: these two gentlemen do not take a whole lot of takedowns, and their takedown defense are very impressive, both of them. I don't see this fight going to the ground. I see it staying standing. My question for you: when you look at the two average fight times, Alistair Overeem with over 60 pro fights, his average fight time is 7 minutes and 2 seconds. Augusto Sakai with 17 pro fights is 11 minutes and 10 seconds. Alistair Overeem isn't known as a knockout artist, a quick knockout artist, especially as of here lately. And I think that might be the one thing that's a takeaway from this entire situation. I honestly think Augusto Sakai, it's going to be his coming out party.
What I feel like for me, it will be a 4 or maybe even going to decision fight, win by Overeem.
Overeem is the favorite in this fight, minus 160. Augusto Sakai is the plus 130 underdog. I truly believe that Augusto Sakai has the victory in this one. In my opinion, I feel like it's going to be a knockout within the first 2 rounds.
Well, brother, what can I tell you? I think that we shall see. I'm picking Overeem, you're picking Sakai. Well, we'll have to wait and see.
I am super, super impressed by this entire card. When you look at cards like this, there's not a whole lot of like crazy matchups, not big names. But when you really break it down and look at the fighters that are on this card, some really impressive prospects that be coming up, and that could really be big names here. For you, give me 3 big matchups to watch here on Saturday night.
Let's see. All right, brother. I will go first with, and I believe you too will go with the Romanov. Listen, the hype is, I really hope it's real, because we need someone like him in this crazy heavyweight division. The co-main events, definitely, because I want to see another. What's the name of the submission actually? The Sam Pruchuk. Yeah, okay, that's what I see. That's what I want to see, because it's impressive. And you know what? I will go with the main event. No, I will go with the Pereira against Imadev, because Pereira go crazy. Zaleem may have to wait and try to win the fight by the late round. So very interesting other matchup.
For me, I got to go with my boy Hunter Azir. I'm super impressed with him, what he's been able to do in the UFC. I think that the future is very bright for this young man, and I can't wait to see what he's able to do. Bartosz Fabinski versus Andre Munoz. We talked to Bartosz earlier. Like I said, I think the fact that him able to get a full training camp in Poland, having his training partners there, I think that's super helpful, and I think it's can be very telling on who's more prepared to come into this fight come Saturday night. And the biggest takeaway for me is I really feel like Carl Rosa is a star in the rise, especially in the women's bantamweight division. I feel like just her output is just so phenomenal, and the fact that she's so hard to take down. Sijara Eubanks is really going to have to work hard to get her down. If Sijara can't get her down, obviously there's going to be other women in that bantamweight division that's going to be able to do it, but Sijara definitely has the power to be able to do it. The champion is going to be probably one of the only women who's going to be able to take her down, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Now, anything else on UFC Apex? 79 million attendance, 0 for the past 6 months. Alistair Overeem versus Augusto Sakai.
Well, there's nothing really to talk about more about this card. I feel like we talked about everything. But what we can talk about is what's going on actually right now in Iran with that fighter who actually, that's crazy, brother. I feel like no man should be executed for his right.
No person at all.
Yeah, for doing nothing, actually just peacefully protesting. Even though I don't have like the full disclosure information, because I'm like anyone, I heard of it watching Dana White's video. That's crazy, but like I told you when we talked before the fight, not surprising, because this is what goes on in a lot of countries in the world. I really hope that the fact that Dana White really doing his best to try to save the situation will work out. But either
get
way,
that guy and his family out of Iran.
Yeah,
listen, get them anywhere else.
If they can do something, it will be great. But it is what it is. It's a kind of choking situation, but I hope everything turns out well.
100%. Huge matchups coming up, brother. We have Tyrone Woodley versus Colby Covington here in a couple weeks. Dude, I'm super excited about that. There's a little bit of confusion on what's going to happen next week. Obviously, we talked about it earlier. Thiago Santos was supposed to fight Glover, but I believe it was Glover came down with the COVID-19. Sabina Mazo, we should be having on the show a little later tomorrow, is going to be also fighting on that same card next week. But, dude, UFC 253 is 3 weeks away. Yeah. Izzy versus Paulo Costa. Dominic Reyes versus Jan Blachowicz. Unfortunately, Jan is not going to have her come out party against Claudia Gadelha. Hopefully they can find her another opponent. But, man, I'm super excited for that main card. Those two co-main event and main event are fireworks.
I feel like this 2020 ending is, like, when it comes to fights, is great. A lot of great fights coming up.
Dude, did you hear they're going to redo Nate versus Masvidal for the BMF title again?
I heard of it, and it's amazing. We have Ortega against the Korean Zombie, which is a fight I'm very interested about. And like you said,
just did an interview with Brett Okamoto. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but he was saying that during the fight with Max Holloway, that he had broke both of his hands, and they were hurt so bad that he would rather get punched in the face than get punched in one of his hands.
Well, that's tell you how great prime Holloway is, actually, because his next level, when he was throwing like those 10, 11, 12 punches combination, nobody been doing that in this division and on that level.
Yeah.
Holloway, when he was champion, before that move he tried to do, fighting Dustin Poirier into the lightweight division, he was a beast.
100%.
Like you said,
super excited to see Korean Zombie and Brian Ortega. I think just the heart and will of both those guys, it's going to be one of those fights where you're going to have to kill one of the other guys to have a finish. It's just that plain and simple. You're going to literally have to kill your opponent.
Yeah, but like you said, the fight that we actually are waiting for is Izzy against Costa.
Oh, Izzy, man, I got to go with Izzy. That's my boy. I feel like if Costa's going to get it done, it's going to be done within the first 2 rounds. I think once he gets into that 3rd round, he'll start slowing down just a little bit. But that's all. Yeah. That's all that Izzy needs. As soon as you slow down a second, Izzy is going to pick you apart.
Yeah, really, really excited about what's coming up.
Anything else for you for Overeem and Sakai?
Not really. I feel like we talked about everything that we needed to talk about.
Well, that about wraps it up for us, guys. Like I always say, stay classy, because listen, At the end of the day, all we have is, the person that you are and your character. That's the only thing we can really carry around with you. And
Yeah.
that shit's important. Be a good person. Be a nice human being. Don't get drunk and drive your motorcycle, and just have a good
Yeah.
life.
Definitely don't drink and drink and drive a motorcycle. Definitely, brother.
Stay classy, knuckleheads.
Peace.